Welcome back, Lost Friends. You are listening to Freckles and Blondie, where we try to puzzle out this jigsaw of a show without agreeing on very much in the process. Except maybe Saeed.
Yeah.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randy.
And today we are looking at Adrift, the second episode of Season 2 of Lost, which is devoted to Michael. It was directed by Stephen Williams and written by Stephen... Is it Maeda or Maeda? Maeda.
Maeda? I don't know.
We'll go with it.
Yeah.
And Leonard Dick. This is Stephen Maeda's first episode of Lost, but he'll write 3 more. And Leonard Dick previously wrote In Translation and The Greater Good. So, did you read this fun tidbit that the episode was originally a Sawyer episode?
I did read that tidbit, which is fascinating.
So cool.
Yeah.
It was originally a Sawyer episode, and a lot of it was even filmed, and the storyline was completely dumped because they decided the quality wasn't high enough. So I feel like that is true commitment, because with high production TV shows like this, like every day you spend working is just costing a fortune.
Yeah.
So you know it had to be like a hard decision to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I could easily see this episode being a Sawyer one, though.
Yeah, I could too. I wonder if they kept some of it and like maybe the stuff on the raft was the same, but the flashbacks just changed.
Yeah, possibly.
Because we get great Sawyer in this episode.
Yeah, he's not bad in this episode.
It shows all his best characteristics, I feel like.
Yeah.
We get to see, he's very funny. He's very smart.
Ridiculous.
And he's even like compassionate and protective of Michael at times. So it's definitely like the better side of him.
Yeah, he's moving on up slowly but surely.
How did you like the episode overall?
So this is an interesting episode. This episode is the one where when I talk to my friends about Lost, my friends who are a lot less enthusiastic about it than I am, they always point to this episode as being terrible and the stuff on the raft takes forever and it doesn't really go anywhere. And so when I was looking up, tidbits about this episode, the critical reception was also really negative. Like, a lot of people said it wasn't that interesting. Nothing new really happened, and it just didn't go anywhere. So, but when I watched it this time, it wasn't as bad as I remembered it being, or as people constantly tell me it is. You know?
Yeah. I can see why people would say that.
Yeah.
I'm not in full agreement. I feel like it's pretty good. It's just not like, it's not thematically juicy, like, how I like. And I think we're kind of, like, for the last few episodes, we've had Damon Lindelof and Carlton Hughes.
Right.
There's, like, no way that we could maintain that level of quality, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, aside from that, I get it because, they are just floating around the ocean pretty much the entire time. And the stuff in the hatch just takes you right back to where we ended in the last episode. So you feel like plot-wise, we didn't progress.
Right.
So I get that. But this is a character show, and we do get some great character development.
Yeah.
And if that's not your jam, you're not going to like this, but...
Yeah, there's some...
I find it pretty good.
Yeah, there's some solid stuff here. And I also think, because I remember watching this episode when it first aired, it was, like so many other episodes of Lost, it was frustrating waiting a whole week for this episode when it ended with the first episode ended with that cliffhanger, and then to not move any farther forward, really.
Yes, definitely.
But... So yeah, I remember that being like, oh, come on, are you kidding me? And especially after we just came off, the 3 or 4 month break between season 1 and 2. But I feel like with the way most people watch shows nowadays, which, I mean, me personally, everything I watch is online. I'm mostly just binge watching whatever show it is I'm watching Like, those things are a lot less annoying when you're watching it back to back.
That's true.
So.
Yeah. And I feel like this whole problem is kind of indicative of the problem Lost is going to have going forward, where they start splitting the storylines and we just get more and more storylines. Mm-hmm. And because we have so much happening, everything feels like it's progressing much slower. Whereas in season 1, we kind of focused on one story at a time. We would have like an A story and then like a little B story. But now we kind of have 2 A stories. And they keep doing that.
Right.
Or they're going to keep doing that. And sometimes I feel like they even have an A, and an A. Yeah. And it feels really heavy all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think, like, personally, I don't love Michael episodes. So I'm always a little bit bored when the spotlight's on Michael.
Same.
But we have enough Sawyer here to balance that out for me that I'm okay. Because Michael is just one of the most annoying characters to me. And luckily, like, Sawyer gets to say a lot of the things that I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Michael, by the end of the episode, he kind of comes around. But throughout the beginning, I was like, dude, you need to get it together.
Yes. I wrote this down at some point in my notes, but I feel like in a Michael episode, he's always like 90% annoying. And then when he gets this moment of redemption where you're like, oh, he's not so bad. And I'm like, no, he was so annoying for most of this.
That is so true. Oh, man.
So, yeah. Overall, I guess I feel like this episode's just average. I won't say I dislike it. I'll just put it as average.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Are we ready to do this?
Let's do it.
Okay. Previously on Lost, do you remember that time that they built a raft and then everything went horribly, horribly wrong? Well, everything went horribly wrong. And Walt got kidnapped by random fisherman-looking people, and the raft got blown up, and obviously we are all thinking right now, I will quit this show if Sawyer is dead.
Sure.
You know, he may have been the one character who I would have quit if it was dead.
Are you serious? That's funny.
That would be hard to come back from.
Yeah.
So, it turns out there's a dude living in the hatch. Kate, Jack, and Locke are on the case. And we open this episode in the ocean with Sawyer, hearing Michael's cries for Walt and seeing the raft burning around him. He swims to a large piece of debris, and he swims/drags it towards Michael, pulling him onto the raft just as he seems to be about to drown. Michael is unconscious, and Sawyer is panicking. So yay, Sawyer's alive.
Yep, Sawyer's alive, saving Michael's life, you know, doing good deeds, so.
He is doing good deeds. Pretty good. And Jin is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. One of my questions for this episode was, how does Jin manage to get so far away from Sawyer and Michael? Like, they were all right there. And I mean, I guess that's how the ocean works, but still, it's interesting.
And didn't, like, Sawyer dive right in after him?
Yeah, that's what I thought. And, like, you can hear Jin screaming in the background in this opening scene. So he's like, right there. And then he's not.
Yeah, it's very confusing. And then when he washes up on land later, it seems like he's been there for quite a while.
Right.
So they got, like, real separated.
Yeah. It's like he got back hours before them, I guess. It's crazy.
It's very confusing. Logistically, I'm not really sure how this makes any sense.
Yeah.
But, okay, I guess we just wanted to have an episode where Michael and Sawyer talk without having to translate for Jen. Right. I don't know.
That would be my guess, too. So, all right.
Yeah. Back at the hatch, we see Locke's descent, and he proves once and for all that he would totally beat anyone in an arm wrestling challenge. Never mess with the guy who lived in a wheelchair.
Why didn't he just do this in the first place? He can clearly get down there on his own.
So that Kate could count to 5, obviously, Randy.
Okay, just keep reminding myself of that moment.
On the raft, Sawyer is giving Michael CPR, and eventually he coughs and seems to be okay. Michael comes back fighting, though, asking where Walt is. We flash back, and Michael is meeting with a lawyer, and not the fancy kind, about Susan taking Walt. She's requested that Michael relinquish his parental rights so that Brian can adopt Walt. Michael wants to file an injunction, which would prevent Susan from leaving the city with him. But his lawyer tells him that it's going to cost a fortune, and he doesn't really recommend it. Michael tells him that no one is taking his son away from him. And, yeah, did you know that Michael wants to keep Walt and that he gets real mad if you try to take him away?
No, it's never been brought up before. What are you talking about?
This is news to me.
Yeah.
That's one of the other, problems with this story is we really don't learn much different about Michael.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to see that moment and what makes him change his mind and let Walt go. But it's a lot of story for very little payoff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I admire Michael for, fighting to keep Walt, but it's very similar to some of the flashbacks we got in Special, his other episode. So
yeah, doesn't feel very different at all.
Yeah.
We cut back to more screams for Walt. Walt!
We should count how many times he screams for Walt in this episode.
No, I can't count that high. Sawyer points out the lack of logic in screaming for Walt when you're in the middle of the ocean and Walt has been taken away by a powerboat. Michael says Walt could maybe hear him and he is getting his son back. The one thing I feel like they do really well with Michael in this episode is I feel like he is cracking.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious that he's cracking. Especially in these scenes, he is just losing it. And I mean, I have a child and if somebody took her, I would be losing it as well. So I'm not condemning him for this, but man, it's hard to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, I don't have a child, as we all know. So I can't imagine going through that situation, but yeah, he's not really acting logically here. It is hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, thank God for Sawyer.
Yeah.
He really lifts these scenes up. Locke is looking for Kate inside the hatch. He takes his shoes off, which I don't really understand why he does that.
I guess so they don't hear, so they can't hear him?
That's what I was thinking, was just to be quiet, but I never see anyone do that on TV when they are trying to be quiet.
That's a good point.
They kind of tiptoe around maybe, but nobody takes the time to take their shoes off.
Yeah.
I almost felt like it was some sort of sign of respect.
Respect for the sacred hatch.
I don't know.
That sounds pretty Locke-like. I wouldn't rule it out.
If anyone else had done it, I would not think that, but maybe.
Oh, Locke.
He finds Kate just as Desmond finds him. Desmond asks, "Are you him?" And we cut back to the raft because this episode is super jumpy.
Yeah, it is.
It was kind of bothering me at this point. I just wanted to stay in one place for a minute and catch up.
Yeah, some of the transitions aren't as smooth as they probably could have been.
Yeah, it kind of perpetuates that problem where you feel like the story isn't moving.
Right, exactly.
Especially in the hatch where we're we know how this ends. We know that Locke is going to be at gunpoint and Jack's going to be here. So this all feels a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Sawyer is screaming for Jen, and Michael tells him that he must be feeling guilty because Sawyer was the one who made him fire the flare. Sawyer's pretty outraged, saying that at least Walt's on a boat, probably wrapped up with a blanket and a cup of cocoa. And Michael tells him to get off his raft. Suddenly, something seems to attack the raft from below them, and of course we cut away.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no reason to be so petty, Michael. I know you're going through a situation, but...
Yeah, that's the thing. It's it's one thing to kind of self-destruct, but it's another to just try to blame and bring everyone around you down.
Right. Especially when Sawyer just saved his life. Like,
yeah, he just saved his life. He was trying to save Walt's life. Like,
yeah.
There's really not much else he could do.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just unfair, Sawyer. Nobody's ever on your side, are they?
No. For once,
I am on your side.
Yeah, and for once, I'm also on your side, Sawyer.
Wow. That says everything. When we cut back, Michael seems very mad that Sawyer still has the gun, and he tells him it's not going to work. When Sawyer shows him the dry bullets, he, of course, accidentally drops them into the water. Then Michael says that whatever is attacking them is doing it because Sawyer's wound is bleeding. Sawyer says, I guess I'll just stop bleeding then, because Michael's blame game is getting real out of control. He reminds him that he got shot while trying to defend them from Walt's kidnappers. Michael says he was just trying to save himself. Sawyer's had enough, and he heads for another broken piece of raft, obviously in a lot of pain. When he finally makes it, he tells Michael that he wanted to save Walt. This scene is so funny.
It is. I love that line when he says, I'll just stop bleeding then. It's so ridiculous.
It's so hilarious. His delivery is just excellent.
Yeah, he does have great delivery. We've said this before, but...
Yeah, he can be written, like, kind of funny, but just the way he delivers it is always just perfect. He knows when to, you know, make it subtle and when to go over the top with it, like this line. I guess I'll just stop bleeding then. He, like, basically shouts it.
Yeah.
Because that's what Sawyer would do in this moment. He would just have had enough.
Right, exactly. And I feel like there's been a couple lines of his that have bothered me, because sometimes the way he talks is so over the top, but I love it in this episode. It's dead on.
Yeah, and it fits well with what's happening in this situation.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious situation, so.
Well, and Michael is being ridiculous and dramatic, and so that's the perfect time to be sarcastic and over the top in your response.
Yeah, he's being really petty throughout most of this, which I feel like we've seen from him before. It's not one of his best character traits. Yeah,
and he's showing that ability that people have to just kind of rewrite history.
Yeah.
Saying all this stuff was Sawyer's fault and that the only reason he did any of this was to save himself, when you're like, no, like, he wasn't giving you CPR to save himself.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. He's just kind of projecting his Sawyer impression on him because he's in pain right now.
Yeah, and he needs someone else to blame other than himself.
Right. Oh, Michael. In a flashback, Michael and his lawyer are meeting with Susan and her lawyer. Michael is being nailed to the wall by Susan's lawyer for his inconsistent parenting choices. She asks him lots of questions about Walt that Michael doesn't know the answers to. He reiterates, though, that he is Walt's father. And that scene's kind of just painful to watch.
It is. It makes me feel bad for Michael. Because, I mean, all the questions the lawyer's asking him, like, what were Walt's first words? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, Walt wasn't like a couple of hours drive away. He was in Europe. And Michael clearly doesn't have a lot of money. Probably can't afford plane ticket to go and see Walt, so...
Right. Yeah, and I feel like what saves this scene is Susan. Because she doesn't say anything, but she looks upset.
Yeah.
Like, she can tell... Like, she knows this isn't fair for Michael. Like, what could he have possibly done? And you can tell she's taking, like, no pride in this all happening. Like, this sucks, and she feels bad about it. And Michael's getting slaughtered by her lawyer. And I don't know, we said it in the last episode with Michael, but I really like her.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that until you pointed that out. She's just sitting there, but she looks kind of heartbroken in a way. Yeah.
Like, there's a way she could have played this scene where she looked just cold.
Right.
And, like, angry that he was trying to take Walt back.
Right.
But she doesn't do that. She clearly still has feelings for Michael, not like romantic, but, you know, she cares about him.
Yeah.
And this is just uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it really is. It's just sad.
Sitting on the raft, Sawyer is picking through his wound, trying to pull the bullet out. It does not sound pleasant. But he does it, and then he asks for a Band-Aid and passes out.
This scene is so ridiculous. He's so ridiculous.
He's so amazing.
I mean, only Sawyer would go to the trouble of ripping out a bullet from his own arm.
Sawyer and Saeed, they're pretty much the only ones who could do this. Maybe Locke. Oh, my 3 favorite people.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I like the badassery.
Yeah, it's entertaining, for sure.
Yeah, nobody would do it with, the comic spin that Sawyer has when he does it.
Very true.
Like, in your last breath, got a Band-Aid?
I know. Such great comedic timing.
Back in the hatch, Locke tells Desmond that, yes, he is him. And he looks pretty proud to be him. Desmond asks, what did one snowman say to the other snowman? And when Locke can't answer that, he tells him to throw away his knife. Locke does, and Kate tells Desmond that they were in a plane crash 44 days ago. Desmond leads them by gunpoint and asks Kate to tie up Locke. Locke says that Kate should be the one tied up since she's a fugitive and all, and he's just a manager of a box company. Ha ha ha. Kate is not thrilled with this plan as Locke pushes her into a room and closes the door, saying that he's doing what's best for all of them. So I feel like you're not going to like this.
At first I didn't like it. When this scene was happening, I was literally writing down, Locke is just screwing Kate over once again. But when I saw that he had, slipped her the knife, I was like, okay, that's actually smart. Like, he feels, obviously he's thinking she can get out of this, and, she's tiny so she can crawl around or whatever. So yeah, I actually don't have a problem with it when I thought about it. So
yeah, you're right. The knife is what really changes it.
Yeah.
And, he's got a plan, and Kate, didn't speak up quickly enough. Maybe she had a plan, but maybe she didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not really sure why he lies to Desmond about being him when Desmond asks him that question. Like, are you him? Because it seems to me like if I was in that situation, I would be like, this lie isn't going to get me very far. As soon as he starts asking me questions about whatever is going on here, the game's going to be up. Like, I don't know what this place is. So
maybe he just wants to be him so badly.
I guess.
Or he just, I feel like at this point, he is feeling disconnected from everybody else on the island, feeling like he is different. He's experienced something different than everyone.
Uh-huh.
And so maybe he thinks that he is like this special person that Desmond has been waiting for, because in a way he is, but he's just not the right special person.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I would fully expect Locke to be like, yes, that is me.
Yeah. It just seems like he should be smart enough to know it's not going to get him very far. But
yeah, no question about it.
Yeah, I get it. The hatch is his baby. He wants to be connected. So
back at camp, Claire discovers Charlie's Virgin Mary statue. When she starts to examine it, he tells her to be careful, and he trades her the baby for the statue. Claire says she didn't realize he was so religious. He says he's not, but it might be a nice thing to have around.
Oh, Charlie, don't do it, please. Don't go down this path.
I find it a little awkward that we only get this one scene back with everybody else.
Yeah, it is kind of weirdly shoved into the middle of these other 2 stories we have going on.
Yeah, it's a nice scene, but if you just given us 2 more 30-second scenes with Charlie and Claire, that would have been better.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Like maybe something where Charlie is taking care of the baby and they're just really happy. And then we have this scene in the middle. And then so what I find significant in this scene is when he trades her the baby for the statue.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly prizing that statue over the baby. And I feel like if you had ended on that note, you could have made that a little bit more symbolic, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm still holding out hope for Charlie. That statue hasn't been broken into, so I still have faith in him, but oh, it's so worrying.
Yeah, it's really worrying how, like, focused on that statue he already is.
Yeah, and you're right. The significant part of it is when he chooses the statue over the baby, over Aaron. So
Mm-hmm. Back in the water, Sawyer has pieced this all together. He tells Michael that the people who did this to them didn't have a boat that you travel an ocean with. It came from somewhere nearby, like the island. He remembers what Rousseau said about the others coming for the boy and that he thinks they did, that Walt's the one they wanted. So, they're in this situation because Michael put Walt on the raft and now it's all Michael's fault. Michael gets mad and he hits Sawyer's piece of raft with a stick that he is randomly holding, and the whole thing falls apart, forcing Sawyer into the water. He climbs back onto Michael's piece and starts to say something, but Michael tells him to shut up because he has no idea what it's like to care for somebody else. Michael.
I know. I mean,
it's real rude, okay? First of all, you've been a parent for 44 days.
That's so true.
Basically.
That's what Sawyer should have said.
Secondly,
oh God.
While I understand, the difference in parenting love versus other kinds of love, that doesn't mean that no one else has ever cared for anyone in their entire life.
Yeah. It's uncalled for.
It's just so rude.
Yeah, and I feel like you have to give Sawyer props for figuring, it out that the others took Walt. I feel like that was pretty smart of him to put together.
It is. It's very smart, especially because Rousseau didn't tell them that they were coming for the boy. Rousseau told Charlie and Saeed.
Oh, yeah.
So Sawyer is just a freaking genius.
All right, well, that makes less sense then, but... yeah.
But I do like that, he would piece this together. Even if, this made more sense logistically, this seems like something his character would do.
Yeah.
And this whole time, I just keep thinking, why do you show no worry for Jin? I know you're upset about your son, but
wow,
why don't you care about Jin at all?
Again, so true. He was right there with them. They don't mention him once.
It's horrible.
It really is.
Like, Sawyer was calling for Jin at least, but Michael is, not interested in that situation at all.
They were like friends. They were becoming friends.
They were Han and Chewbacca.
Exactly.
Oh gosh. Poor Jin.
I know.
He's always getting shafted.
Yeah. Think about how scary it must have been for Jin, because they're on the ocean and it's pitch black outside. At least Sawyer and Michael have each other. Jin is just by himself floating on God knows what. Oh, that's terrifying to think about.
Yeah, I would definitely be panicking.
Yes. Ugh.
Hopefully he's floating on a thing of bananas.
Yeah.
That would make me feel a little better.
Chewing on some bananas, chilling.
Yeah. In a flashback, Susan is meeting with Michael without the lawyers present. She says she thinks Michael's going to win and wants to know why Michael is trying to stop her. He says because he's my son, but she says since when? She says she'll be able to give Walt anything if she can accept this promotion in Rome, whereas Michael is living on disability. He can't provide. She tells him he needs to take care of himself first. He needs to get healthy and get his finances in order so he can pursue his art. She says he's talented and should pursue it, but he can't do all of that with Walt. Michael says he's my responsibility too, and she replies that he should let him go then, because it's about Walt and what's best for him.
Oh, goodness.
Another rocking scene from Susan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoy her more than Michael. It's sad.
Yeah. I don't think Michael comes off too badly in these flashback scenes, but...
He just sounds irrational. Like when she is saying... What was she talking about? She says something and he's like, what, you got your lawyers checking up on me? And she's like, yeah, just like you have your lawyers checking up on me. That's what you do in this situation. Like, he seems petty, like you were saying earlier in this scene, too.
That's interesting. I feel like when I watched this scene, I felt like Susan was being a little unfair to Michael.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like Michael so wants to be involved in Walt's life. There's some line in the scene where she's like, you know, if you do this, you can still be involved or whatever. And it's like, Michael can't be involved if you take away all his rights. And I was also thinking, like, this is especially unfair when we know from the other episode about Michael's special that Brian never wanted to adopt Walt in the first place. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like she was being a little unfair. I get where she's coming from, but I feel bad for Michael in this scene.
Yeah. Yeah, is this whole, like, court case, are they even talking about Brian adopting Walt? Is that part of this, or is it just about her leaving the country?
I think it's both. I think it was he filed an injunction to stop her from leaving the country.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is that Susan wants Brian to adopt Walt and for Michael to give up all his parental rights. Like, that's why his lawyer says at the beginning, like, if this goes through, Walt will just be some kid on the street like any other kid. You won't have any right to, you know, whatever with him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the part that's hard because her accepting her promotion in Rome seems totally reasonable to me. I don't know why Brian needs to adopt Walt.
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't either, because I guess I just feel bad for Michael because he's not like one of those guys or fathers that's usually portrayed in television shows where he's just a deadbeat dad. He had Walt and he's not really like convenient to his life, so he just kind of wants to forget about him. Mm-hmm. It seems like even though Susan is right, like Michael does need to take care of himself, get his life together, like Michael still wants to be involved in Walt's life, you know? And I don't blame Susan either for, you know, taking these amazing job offers and living abroad. That's good for her, but it's not like Michael doesn't want to be there for him and want to get to know his son, it seems like. So
no, it's very hard.
Yeah,
it is. You're definitely right. Like, it's sympathetic for Michael because, you know, that would just be the toughest situation because, you know, they're both right in their own ways. Like, they both have their points. Yeah, I feel like I know all that, and I still am totally on Susan's side. Okay. I don't know why. There's no explanation. She's just, like, so compelling to me. I think it's just the way she does it, and I think it would be all wrong if there weren't these obvious moments where she cares about him. When she's, like, telling him how talented an artist he is, and how she wants him to get healthy and become a great artist. Like, I feel like she really does want the best for him and want the best for Walt. So I'm, like, just not that mad at her, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I even think all the things she's saying are really supportive. And I think the ultimate decision that they come to at the end of this episode, where, you know, Susan kind of wins and Michael gives Walt up, I think that's the right decision. But for some reason, when I watch this scene, I just feel bad for Michael. I don't know why.
Sure. I don't think it's bad to feel bad for Michael. I think you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think I would if I just liked his character more.
Yeah.
And I do feel bad, like, theoretically, for any parent who would have to go through that. But Michael, he's just so annoying.
Yeah. Oh, Michael. I can't wait to talk about the things he's going to do this season.
Yeah. Could be projecting a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying not to.
Me too.
Sometimes it's hard. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I wondered is in the beginning of this scene, she tells Michael she thinks he's going to win. When we just had that scene where, like, he couldn't say anything to this lawyer because she was just on fire. I don't think he was going to win. I feel like this is Susan throwing him a bone.
I agree. I feel like she started off that way just to make him feel a little bit better about the situation because it did not look good for Michael in that other scene.
No. these are just like these really subtle things that make this very minor character really complex and compelling, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, people act like you have to spend so much time to develop a character, and like there's just no time for that stuff, and that's not true. It's not hard to write in little things that tell you who that person is.
Yeah, if it's done well and written well, then you don't need much time. You're absolutely right.
In the closet, or wherever she is, Kate is struggling out of her restraints because, you know, she's had a lot of practice with this. Girl's resourceful. And she's got a knife.
Yeah.
She stands up and turns the light on to see that she's in a pantry. A loaded pantry full of yummy, delicious, non-mango things. Oh, and there's a vent she could climb out of too, but candy bar. She's a little distracted, as we all would be in a life or death situation. So she grabs a few for the road and makes her way through the air vent. I really like that scene.
Yeah. Love that detail that she eats the candy bars and takes a few for the road. Because that's what anyone would do in that situation.
It is. And I love that it's Kate, because I feel like she doesn't get much, like, humor, you know?
Right, because she's
like, this is a scene that we easily would have seen from Hurley or Charlie, but this is great.
Yeah, I agree. She's so serious all the time. She has such a kind of a dark past. So, yeah, it's nice to see that from her.
Yeah. Locke is telling Desmond the story of Flight 815, and Desmond can't believe that the world is still out there. Locke is the epitome of calm and patience in this scene. Desmond, not so much. He asks how many of the passengers have gotten sick, but Locke says nobody. Suddenly, there's a beeping, and I get all the excited Lost fan tingles from it.
Oh, God.
I'm like, yes, it's the numbers and the button. I'm so excited.
Yep, we have finally arrived.
It's like one of those memory triggers. Like, if somebody just played that exact beeping sound at some random moment, I'd be like, oh my God, 4, 8, 15.
Oh God, that's so funny.
Desmond leads Locke to the computer and tells him to type in exactly what he says. He lists out the numbers. The numbers. Locke enters them and asks Desmond what's going to happen as he pushes execute. The countdown on the wall returns to 108, and that is when they hear Jack. Lots of visitors you're having today, Desmond. I hope you prepared and everything's all cleaned up.
Yeah, I like this scene. Locke is definitely very calm, like you said before.
Yeah, you can tell he's just trying to, like, bond with Desmond and figure out what's going on and make peace with the situation. Mm-hmm. In very Locke fashion, he just wants to know more, know more, know more. He won't even push execute without saying what's going to happen. Like, he just has to know. And
Yeah.
Of course, Desmond doesn't answer him because this is Lost.
Of course not. But yeah, such a kind of a great twist that Hurley's same cursed numbers are now being put into this computer seemingly every 108 minutes. So.
Right? I'm sure Hurley's going to have no problem with this at all.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll go over just fine.
Yeah, this is one of those things that, like, the first time you watched it, this was just so bonkers.
Yes, it was.
And now I'm just like, yay, this is so fun. But I think it adds to this feeling of the episode being kind of slow. Because I'm like, yeah, I know, enter the numbers. 4, 8, 15, 16, you know, I got it.
Yeah, well, we didn't see that last episode, did we?
No, we did not see it. I just mean, like, as someone who's seen the show before.
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
It's going to feel a little slower, I guess.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, the first time I saw this, it was definitely mind-blowing. But now it's like, yeah, this is happening.
Kate feels like she is in some weird horror movie as cheery music begins playing and she crawls through the vents. She sees Jack below her and watches the standoff between him and Desmond go down from above. We cut away again. And Sawyer and Michael see the pontoon from the raft. Sawyer starts paddling over, breaking their piece of raft in the process. He says he's going for the pontoon, and he hands Michael the gun in case the shark goes for him. It does, and Michael begins shooting wildly. And we are all just amazingly lucky that Sawyer is still alive after this.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Never give somebody who is losing their mind a gun.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that wreckage was kind of breaking up, but I don't know why Sawyer couldn't have just stayed with Michael. Like, he's bleeding and injured and there's a shark in the water. Just
What should have happened is Michael should have gone for the pontoon.
Yeah.
But Michael would not think to do that right now.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the one who is bleeding and just got shot probably shouldn't be the one in the water when there's a shark nearby. Shouldn't be the one having to swim across the ocean.
I mean,
it's
maybe.
just all wrong.
Yeah. It just makes no sense.
Whereas he could sit there on the raft and he would calmly be able to shoot that shark if it went after Michael. So...
Yeah, Sawyer's probably the better shot anyway, so...
Exactly. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. Sawyer's lucky to be alive.
Seriously. Oh, Sawyer helps Michael on the pontoon and everyone's alive. Yay.
Sorry. I interrupted you before you finished.
I think I interrupted myself.
Okay.
Back with Michael, Susan has brought a young Walt to say goodbye to his dad. Michael, of course, has a little polar bear for Walt. Michael tells him that he's going to have a great life and his mom and Brian are going to take great care of him. But no matter what, his daddy loves him very much and he always will. They say goodbye and Michael watches them leave. And it's super sad.
It is sad. I feel like, this is very unselfish of Michael to agree to this. Like, he's, they're doing the best thing they can do for Walt, but this is just a shitty situation for Michael.
Yeah, it really is. The sun is rising on the ocean, and Michael is crying. Sawyer asks him if he's okay, and Michael says the truth of it. It was all his fault. He never should have brought Walt on the raft, but he's going to get him back. It's the first time he's made sense in the past 12 hours. And it is all just in time, as their pontoon has floated back to the island. On dry land, they hear shouting, and it's Jen. His hands are tied behind his back, and he's shouting something ending with others. Sawyer and Michael look up to see multiple dark figures walking towards them. And that's how you end a Dane episode right there.
Ugh. Again, what a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Ugh. It's a very creepy final scene.
Yeah, it is. The way Jen runs out of the jungle and he's so distressed and scared.
Mm-hmm. You're just like, you get no second to revel in the fact that, yay, Jen's alive. You're just like, what's wrong, Jen?
Right.
But yeah, that's the episode. The hatch just kind of leaves off right where we left off last episode.
Yeah, we don't really go any further with that.
Mm-mm. I mean, I guess we get some significant moments with, Desmond asking Locke if it's him, and we are introduced to the numbers and the computer. So we are getting little tidbits about what's going on in here, but yeah, I can see where it feels like this storyline just stalls.
Yeah. Again, because like you said earlier, the way they switch back and forth between the story on the raft and the story in the hatch, like, to me, it would almost have been better if this whole episode had just been about the raft, maybe, and then we could have come back to the hatch storyline. I don't know.
Yeah. Or do the raft and people back at camp. Charlie and Claire and Saeed and Shannon.
Right.
Just a whole new story would have been good over there. And yeah, just like save this hatch stuff for later.
Yeah, until we can like really focus on it the whole time, maybe.
Yeah. I feel like I would have liked that better.
Yeah, me too. I feel like that would have made a lot of people a lot less angry than they were about this episode.
Yes. That's a shame.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just, it's not much.
Yeah, it's not. And it's just the type of episode where when I talk to my friends who haven't watched Lost in years, they're like, oh, that raft storyline lasted for weeks and weeks. Like, that's how they remember it in their mind.
That's so funny. I've never heard anyone say that or complain about that.
When we started doing this podcast and I told some of my friends about it, that was the first thing they brought up. They're like, oh, remember that raft storyline in season 2 that took forever?
That is hilarious.
Yeah. They're like so angry about it. And I'm like, I don't think it was as bad as you're remembering, but anyway.
Oh, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I posted on Instagram asking people about what they thought of this episode, and nobody said anything about disliking it, so that's really surprising.
Huh. That is surprising.
But yeah, I feel like we kind of didn't like it based on what we just went through.
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's terrible.
Yeah.
But
there are a few episodes of Lost that are terrible.
Yeah, very true.
Like, honestly.
Very true.
So, yeah, I mean, this will definitely be in the bottom half of what we've watched so far. But, you know, the Lost standard is really high. Mm-hmm. And this just isn't as wonderfully Lost as it is.
Yeah.
Or as it could be.
Exactly. It had a few issues.
Sawyer really redeems it.
Okay.
I mean, really think about this episode without Sawyer. It would be real boring.
I mean, that is true. The way he delivers some of his lines, it does add something, you know, needed to this episode, so.
Yeah, the humor is definitely a relief.
Yeah.
In this episode. And I feel like he also just has a lot of, you know, surprising character moments. I use surprising loosely, where he's just doing the right thing. And that's always just really nice to see.
No, I would definitely say that's surprising coming from Sawyer.
See, I don't feel like it's surprising.
Right.
I feel like we've been giving these hints the whole time. But it's very explicit in this episode.
Yeah. I feel like he's really turned a corner for me in this episode. He shows like a level of compassion at times. I'm just like, wow, there's that person that I was looking for underneath all the other mess that you usually put out there for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, when Michael's crying and he's just like, he's not going to make fun of him in that moment. He's just like, dude, are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like season 1 Sawyer would have just berated him or just had so many more sarcastic comments to say about the situation. But I don't know. It feels different this time.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the last, 4 or 5 episodes, he's felt like more a part of this whole community.
Yeah, I would say the season finale was when he really started to turn a corner for me. But
yeah, exactly. So it was really hard to think of a theme for this episode.
Yeah.
I hope you thought of a good one.
Ugh, not really.
No pressure.
What I came up with, and as I was writing it down, I was like, this is very cheesy, but I thought the theme could be sometimes letting go is the best thing you can do for someone you care about. And obviously I pulled that out of Michael's backstory. You know, he has to learn that, giving Walt up is really the best thing for him. Mm-hmm. So that theme doesn't really have anything to do with anything else going on in the episode, so I don't know.
Well, that's the hard thing about this episode is there's not a lot of, I always say thematic juice.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of juice to either storyline, really.
Yeah, there really isn't.
But I was similar, but I said, how do you pick yourself up when all feels lost and keep going?
Oh, that's better.
Because I felt like with the title of this episode being Adrift,
mm-hmm.
they were trying to do this thing where they were literally adrift in the ocean and they were lost, and Michael in his past was lost. I don't really like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's too cheesy. It's just over the top. I don't know.
I can see that though.
Yeah, it's not done intentionally enough. I feel like the title is the only thing that really points to that. So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's not a lot of, what did you say, thematic juice in this episode to really delve into and debate about. It's just, it is what it is, kind of. So.
Yeah, which is boring.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yep. That was Adrift.
That was Adrift. It's we're coming off the high of Exodus Part 1 and 2, which were amazing.
Right.
3 hours of awesome. And then the premiere, which was wonderful. And now here we are.
Yeah.
Getting some story where we learn that Michael cares about his son. And we're like, wow, okay.
Yeah, you're right to point that out, because it feels like the bar has been set so high with the finale and the season opener. And then it's episode 2, and it's like, if this episode had been situated maybe like in the middle of the season, it would have been a little different. But yeah, it suffers from the episodes that it's surrounded by, for sure.
It really does. I wonder if next week will be like really good, or if it will just feel like a pickup from this one.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I barely remember next week's episode.
Yeah, I think I remember something about it, but I'm not sure if I'm thinking of a different Locke episode. That's all I know, is that it's Locke.
Yeah, same.
Which is so wonderful and exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say about Adrift?
Not really. I feel like we've
there's not much to say.
Said it all.
We're just making up for last week when we couldn't stop talking, and this week we're just gonna do the reverse.
Exactly. This is a shorter episode for you guys this week, so
you're welcome. All right, so that'll be it then. We are so thankful that you are here listening to us ramble each week. We love your comments and questions, so please drop us a line on Instagram or shoot us an email at frecklesandblondie@thelostpodcast.com. If you would like to help the show out, please head to iTunes and rate, review, subscribe to Freckles and Blondie there. We have not had a new review in a while, guys, so it would be a big help if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, if you went over and paid us a visit.
Yeah, give us some new reviews for the new year, please.
Yes. You can also be as awesome as our current Patreon donators and pledge $1 a month or whatever you can afford to helping us produce this podcast every week. We are now only $5 away from our monthly Lost Watch parties that we have been promising for so long.
Woot!
$5 is like nothing. That is a Starbucks drink.
Yeah.
So we are a Starbucks drink away from Lost parties.
We can so get there.
So if you would like to join the party and watch Lost with us, head over to our Patreon page. You can find the link to that and anything else on our website, thelostpodcast.com. Thank you so much for all the support that you have shown so far. Make sure that you tune in next week for Orientation, the 3rd episode of Season 2, as we get to spend some time with John Locke. So you know that's going to be a wonderful episode.
Yep, you know there's going to be lots of interesting discussion with that one.
Where Randy hates everything.
Okay. Maybe not. Maybe he'll turn around next week. Who knows?
Maybe he'll turn it around. Turn it around from his awesomeness. Whatever.
Oh, God.
Until then, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randy.
And this has been Freckles and Blondie. Let's see. Okay. So, here's the Earth.
Oh my
I'm so glad you got that.
God, what a throwback.